I gotta be honest, I did not know what to expect. A 45-minute Nintendo Direct just on Kirby Air Riders, a sequel to a GameCube game that I haven't played. I like Forgotten Land a lot, but I'm sorry, Sakurai, I don't love Kirby. I've never been super into Kirby, and this is another racing game, and we just had Mario Kart World, which I spent so much time in and kind of got a little bored of and moved on, so I didn't really know what to expect. And I went through some emotions, but at the end of it, I am so excited for Kirby Air Riders. There's so much going on here, and I want to try and break it down and tell you why I'm so excited for this. I need to start by saying that I adore Sakurai. I love this man and his work ethic and his approach to video games, his love for video games, but also his love for the people who play his games. He's so in tune with not only the video game industry and what makes a fun, unique, and refreshing experience with a video game, but also what the people that play his games want from his games, but also want to hear about his games and his development. Like, I went live 30 minutes before the event, and I did that so that I could kind of talk about my expectations and my questions, because even down to development times and the comparison between Mario Kart and Kirby, Sakurai talked about it all. In this event, he told us that he was approached by Nintendo while he was making Smash DLC to make a new Kirby Air Riders, and he told them that he was really busy right now, but he gave them a pitch for what he would like to do with it, and it was approved. So it's just really cool to hear from Sakurai how the development of this game came around in this direct. But furthermore, I was wondering how he was going to separate this from Mario Kart World, a game that just came out 2 months ago. And sure enough, he even talked about that in the start of the direct, talking about how he asked Nintendo, he pushed back and said, you guys are making a new Mario Kart. Are you sure you want my next game to be another racer type game? Like, it's so similar. And Nintendo ultimately said yes. And this is, again, the final thing that I said while I was waiting for this stream to start today. I said that it's Sakurai. So every element of this game is going to be overdeveloped in the best way. You just think about Smash Ultimate and everything that game had. 80 characters, each with its own moveset and special moves and different outfits and skins, and they all interact with each other in ways that somehow don't break the game, and all the different maps that do crazy animated things. Like, Sakurai goes next level with everything he does. So if he's making a game like Mario Kart World that just came out, you know he's going to try and beat that. He's going to go next level with everything in the game. And I really believe he did that, while at the same time making something that's retro and nostalgic, but also refreshingly new and unique. I really don't know how his brain works the way that it does. But now that I've set all of that up, and I know that was a lot, let's dive into the actual direct. So I will admit, when this first began, I was very whelmed. I was very surprised because I had just said everything I just said. I expected this over-the-level quality of detail and different to Mario Kart. And the first 10 minutes was really just showing how you drive the carts. You don't have to press a button. They drive on their own. You just control the direction, and then you just press A to boost around corners. And here are some of the riders that you can pick between. They do like this really fun Smash-style reveals for each of the riders, and also the carts that you can choose from. And the tracks just looked very empty and basic and barren, and there was nothing going on. In that first 10 minutes, I was just sat there panicking, and you can tell by the look on my face that I was really worried. What this ultimately was Sakurai just easing you into everything, and then he was about to ramp it up to 100. So in this first 10 minutes, you can see that the base control of this thing, it's similar to Mario Kart. You drift around corners to get boosts, and you race down tracks. But then it starts to introduce what makes this game more unique in the race, which is every single character has their own special ability, which already in itself is something that I would really have wanted from Mario Kart World. So already on its face value, you have Sakurai going Sakurai mode and giving every single character their own unique special ability. Even like the mushroom has a passive ability where the mushroom, the hat, is a shield that can take a hit or two of damage before it falls off. So already each character is actually going to feel different to play as, whereas in Mario Kart World, you pick a character, any character, they'll have slight speed differences, but they'll feel the same to race. This is the level that Sakurai goes into though, with every character actually feeling different. And then you combine that with all the different gliders that have very different play styles as well, and you're gonna get some really bigger and more exciting mix and mashups than you'll get in Mario Kart World. But it doesn't end there. You know how Kirby is Kirby? He can suck people in and steal their ability. Well, he can do that. Very Kirby thing to do, and also a lot of work animating that in this game. So yeah, very Sakurai, and you would think that's a lot. What else could he do? What else? How overboard could he go? Every character in this game can essentially do their version of sucking in another character and stealing their ability, which is so over the top because every character animates the ability differently, because you have characters like the slime that only has a tongue, so he's got to hold on to like the sword ability with his tongue, whereas King Dedede can hold on to it with his hands. So every character is going to animate differently depending on the ability you have, and how they use the ability is going to be animated and look different, which is again the Sakurai level of detail and uniqueness. Also, just like in Kirby games, you don't have to swallow the ability and take it. You can also just spit out the person and use him as essentially a green shell or a red shell. So you have a lot of options when you race and when you play as to what abilities you want to take and how you want to use the abilities, or if you want to use them at all. There's also a lot more stats involved here than in the Mario Karts. There's like 8 different stats you need to think about when you're pairing up karts and races. Okay, now here's the thing. Again, up until this point, watching the footage, a lot of this stuff was cool, but the actual racing that I was seeing in the direct looked very minimal and unexciting. The reason why this direct is 45 minutes long is because twice Sakurai fully showcases the 2 big modes that you'll be playing. And here, he plays a whole lap in the traditional racing mode, and it is way more chaotic than the start of the direct was letting on. He immediately lets all the racers get ahead of him and get a head start, and then he starts barreling down the course, and there is legitimately so much going on in the levels. So many different hazards and effects and rails to grind on and enemies around. It really seems like, depending on how you play and what you choose to do, you really make your own way of playing. You make your own abilities depending on what you decide to steal or how you decide to use it. There's way more choice, and I love the freedom of that. And then busting out a special move once it's fully charged. I think I like this approach more. I think it's more exciting, and it really is like the idea of Smash as a fighter, but turned into a racer. And there is actually fighting in there, because a lot of the abilities you use to like knock out other racers, which is fun. But yeah, this mode, believe it or not, it's kind of the side mode. It's kind of the optional mode. It's here and it exists because you essentially have the mechanics to do it, so why not? But the mode that he seems way more proud of, and the mode that he says that fans of Kirby Air Riders on GameCube are probably more excited to see and will probably spend more time in, is the sandbox mode. Have you ever played Smash Run on the 3DS? Because that is what this is. And I'm now realizing, and I had no idea, that Smash Run on the 3DS must have been inspired by this mode in the GameCube version of Kirby Air Riders. You have this sandbox of Skya, kind of looks like a miniature Mario Kart world map, where you get 5 minutes to run free in the map. You drive around collecting as many power-ups as you can, and you essentially use the 5 minutes to get as beefed up as possible. But on top of that, there's world events that happen. There's passive world events that will change the gravity of the gliders, so you'll be able to fly more, for example. But there's also world events in the sense of, hey, if you come meet up in this area right now, there'll be a 30-second battle royale, and the winner of the battle royale will get an insane drop of boosts and items to help power and level you up when you get to the actual mini games. So you have these in-world events, and then everyone who didn't want to be a part of that and they're busy just collecting things, they'll see ghost versions of you and the other characters that opted in racing around, which is pretty cool. On top of the fact that you're doing it so that at the end of the 5 minutes, you vote and load into a mini game, and depending on how you've leveled yourself up will depend on how good you do. So if you really leveled up top speed and speed, for example, and then the mini game is who can drive the fastest, the furthest in the shortest amount of time, you'll have a huge advantage. And ultimately, that is how you win this game mode is by winning the mini game at the end. And again, with it being 5 minutes and then the mini game probably only being a couple minutes, it's just going to be so much fun to just do one more and keep playing online like that. You can kind of get the idea of what mini game might happen at the end of the mode. So you might want to jump onto a certain glider or a certain kind of bike, depending on what mode is coming up. There's so much strategy in how you play, what you collect, what cart you choose, and so much more. This is definitely a game where it's going to be fun to play, and you can even put into a casual, slower mode if you just want to enjoy the racing or just want to enjoy the game. But if you really want to master it, you're going to have to play a lot and learn a lot about all the stat buffs and the carts and what cart's good for what and the mini games and so on. This is really random, but someone in chat when I was streaming said, aren't you kind of thrown off by the image of the boosts being PNGs around the world? I was thinking to myself while watching that I love that it's still the old PNGs from Smash Run, because again, both games were Sakurai, and even in Smash Run, they were these PNG. They looked exactly like these items, and he showed in this old footage of Kirby Air Riders 1, and they looked the same in there too. It was an intentional choice to keep them looking nostalgic for people. And I know it's intentional because there's a bunch of 3D food in the world, these really high detailed food items that you can pick up. But for some reason, and the reason is nostalgia, he kept these old PNG images or these old JPEG images the same way they've always been. And I think that's another thing that reflects what this game is. And while I was watching the trailer, I kept thinking about it the whole time, but this game is so GameCube era. And I know obviously it's a direct sequel to a GameCube game, but when I play Mario Kart World, I'm not thinking to myself, man, this feels like a GameCube game. This feels like Double Dash. This feels like we've gone back in time with a new, fresh version of it. It kind of just feels like a Switch 2 evolution of Mario Kart World. There's just something so inherently charming and old school and GameCube about this, in the way it's developed and the way that it's presented, while at the same time looking like a new, fresh, fast-paced, and frantic version of the game. And again, I am not a Kirby fan, really. And I never played Air Riders 1, and I gotta be honest, I'm not even that big in racer games. So the fact that I look at this and I'm excited for the chaos, I think it's just because it's the way Sakurai makes games. They're wild, they're frantic, they're so much more at their core than what they're trying to be. And you want to talk about Sakurai's humor? If you are the only one that queues in for the mini game that you chose, you win by default. And they've even animated a little thing where Kirby realizes, oh, I'm alone. I guess I've won. They didn't have to animate that. Everything Sakurai does is overboard. Everything he does is worth the price of admission. And speaking of price, it's $70, and it definitely feels like a $70 game. They can't get away with charging $80 like they did for Mario Kart World. I think the one thing it's going to be competing with is obviously Mario Kart World. And when the general public go to Target or go to Walmart to buy a game and they see Mario Kart World and they see Kirby Air Riders, I am worried they'll be like, well, I like Mario more, and I already have Mario, or if I want a racing game, I'm gonna get Mario Kart, right? And they're not gonna see the value or the difference or the insanity that Kirby Air Riders is going to be. It's a completely different game, and I think there is definitely enough room in your video game library for both experiences because of how different they are. But I don't know if that's gonna come across when people just see the game on the shelf without having the game explained to them. What I'm saying is the biggest battle this game's gonna have to fight is just the competition with Mario Kart World. And then it ended with a release date, November 20th, which at first I was like, oh, so far away, but it's really not. We're only a few months away from this thing. Oh, I don't want to end on a negative note, but I do feel like it's worth mentioning. The game looks a little rougher than I would hope in its world building. The characters look great, the carts look great, the PNGs look fantastic, but the actual world and the trees and the environments, they're very flat. And if you pause on any one frame, you see like these classic flat flowers and classic flat jagged leaves that connect like Legos. And it's just like you're coming off of Mario Kart World and some other really pretty games recently like Donkey Kong. It's the only thing I noticed. And again, it all comes together in a pretty picture at the end of the day. And once HDR is on and the colors are popping and you're blasting around these courses at breakneck speeds, you're not really stopping to smell the JPEG flowers. Maybe that's that's why I'm feeling that GameCube nostalgia here. At the end of the day, if they're blasting these GameCube-esque visuals at 4K 60, then hey, who am I to complain? If the game plays really well and it's really fun, visuals really don't matter at the end of the day. And that's definitely something that's true and definitely something I've always said. And I will curb it by saying that I don't think it's that big of an issue. But I would love to know what you guys think of the visuals, but of the game. Were you a fan before? Are you excited now? I highly doubt there is anybody who was excited for this and was looking forward to this that have now changed their mind. I can only assume fans are losing their mind right now. And what I think has happened is there's a lot of people like me who are now all of a sudden excited for a game they had no idea they were going to be excited for. And sure, there might be people that still aren't interested. Every game isn't for everybody, but I definitely feel like this was a really good showing and a really fun 45-minute direct. And I just love Sakurai. So leave your thoughts down below, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video probably.